most people listening to this podcast are like, I'm a surgeon, I operate, and I have a manager, and she takes care of the practice.
Right.
That just doesn't work, right? If you want to grow it.
Hello, and welcome to Beauty and the Biz, where we talk about the business and marketing side of plastic surgery. I'm your host, Catherine Maley, author of Your Aesthetic Practice, What Your Patients Are Saying, as well as consultant to get plastic surgeons more patients and more profits. Now, today's special guest is Dr. Manuel Lopez. He's a facial and reconstructive plastic surgeon who founded Advanced Aesthetics Lopez Plastic Surgery and L Spas in San Antonio, Texas. Now, Dr. Lopez came to Texas with the Air Force to be the chief of facial plastics at Wilford Hall Medical Center in 2004, and then a year later was deployed to Iraq, yikes, to be the head neck surgeon at Balad Air Base. Now, in 2008, he decided to start a part-time private practice while still in the Air Force, and then went full-time in 2010 and has built a very successful operation. So Dr. Lopez, welcome to Beauty and the Biz podcast. It's a pleasure to finally get you on here.
Oh, thank you so much, Catherine. And before we get started, I got to thank you for what you do for the industry. You know, what you do, putting out all this great content is not easy. I think the only endeavor that fails more than restaurants or podcasts, and you've been doing it for such a long time and putting out such great information. I know a lot of the listeners appreciate what you do, and I certainly do. So thanks for having me on the show.
Oh, I really appreciate that. You know, it is funny because a lot of the surgeons say to me, "Oh, I'm going to start a podcast." And I always say, think about that before you say that. There's a lot to that, and you have to have some people behind you. I'm not the only one doing this. I have a full team that has to do the video, the audio, the social media, the design, and da da da. So, whew. But
It
thanks for
takes
that.
a special talent, and you're doing a great job.
Oh, appreciate that. So, I do want to hear a little bit about the Air Force and Iraq. Do you want to just talk about that for a minute?
I'm happy to talk about whatever you like to talk about. So the Air Force put me through medical school. It's a health professions scholarship program. So I signed up when I was like 23, and then I did all my training civilian. And then when I finished my fellowship in facial plastic surgery, it was right during the Iraq War, and everyone was asking, "Is there any chance you're going to go to Iraq?" I thought, no. I mean, why would they send somebody so specialized to Iraq? Well, the first day I showed up to Wilford Hall in 2004, I was getting a tour of the hospital, and I met this tech, and he said, "Oh, are you the new doctor going with me to Iraq in January?" And it was like July. And I thought, I haven't heard anything about this. So I kind of finished the tour, went back and talked to the chairman who I'd had dinner with like the month before when I was visiting. And I said, Joe, I got this weird question. This tech asked me if I'm going with him to Iraq in January. He goes, yeah, Manny, I've been meaning to talk to you about that. And so he said, we don't think you're quite ready. Because remember, I did all my training civilian. And so I really wasn't quite indoctrinated into the military quite yet. And so instead of January, I went in May of 2005. And honestly, it was a highlight of my career. Worked with amazing surgeons out there, did incredible operations that I would never get the opportunity if I'd not deployed out there. So yeah, fantastic time. I did have my second child, Esau, when I was there. So I came home to a 2 month old, which was different. And I left my 2 year old at home, leaving for 5 months was not easy. But again, in retrospect, highlight of my career, worked with amazing surgeons. We still get together annually just to kind of, keep that bond.
They always say that when you go to school together, like med school, you become friends for life, and in the service, you become friends for life.
Yeah, serving in combat, obviously we weren't in combat, but in a combat zone when you're taking care of these guys that are putting their life on the line. And back in '05, there was a lot of young guys still getting injured, and so it was great to be there to support them.
Did you get a ton of surgical experience out of that?
I did. It was incredible. I think I did over 200 cases when I was there, and it was all trauma, head and neck. You can imagine what these IEDs were doing back then, just because the chest and abdomen were protected, but the busiest people in the hospital were the orthopedic surgeons because the extremities were exposed, and then us, doing myself and the oral maxillofacial surgeon, who he and I were kind of attached to the hip. Fantastic guy. We're super busy doing all the head and neck trauma.
I mean, that kind of experience is priceless. Where else would you ever get that unless you were doing, the night shift at the, public, surgical hospital, in the area. But boy, you can't beat that.
but yeah, that intense. And the beauty of it was we were there just to operate. So essentially, you operated all the time and you weren't distracted with anything else. And so it was a great experience, especially being about a year out of fellowship at the time. Yeah.
Okay, so here you are. Now you're back. You're in San Antonio. You're not from San Antonio, or are you?
No, I'm from Southern California.
Oh, for heaven's sake. So you end up in San Antonio and then you stay. And then you look around and say, wow, I think I could start my own side hustle here. And you start your own practice. How did that happen?
Exactly right. So I always thought I was going to go back to Southern California. I love Southern California. All my family's there. After having been here a few years, San Antonio is just growing on me. It's a great city. It's the seventh largest city in the country, so it's got a great population. And it kind of reminded me what I grew up in Southern California in the 70s and 80s, because California's changed quite a bit since I grew up there, as I know you're well aware of. And so my family was happy. I thought, I can test out the market. And what happened was because of Iraq, you can actually accrue a lot of leave or vacation time. It used to be 60 days and that was it. You'd have to use or lose it. But because we were being deployed and people weren't able to use their leave, they basically allowed you to accrue a lot of leave. So with about 2 years left, I realized I could work every Monday and use that leave and kind of test the market because there hadn't been a full-time facial plastic surgeon in the community in San Antonio. So I started doing that out of an ENT office. I had one room in the ENT office, saw like one or two patients a day, and I was just thrilled to even see those one or two. And that kind of started building up and did that for 2 years. And then when I got out of the Air Force in 2010 is when I went full time private practice.
And did you go completely cosmetic or were you balancing cosmetic with recon and dabbling?
So in 2008, I met a Mohs surgeon. And so what I would do is actually, he would do the Mohs in the morning, and I would go from my office to the hospital and do his reconstructions that night, right? Just to get I got this big reputation in the Air Force, but nobody knew me in the community. And so I was like, I just need to get my name out there and start doing cases. So I would close for the head and neck surgeon. I was doing free flaps and doing all those kind of things from like '08 to 10. Fortunately, once I opened up my or the full time private practice, I had gotten busy enough that I stopped doing the big reconstructions and I was still doing Mohs. And part of it was because we started a surgery center at the same time. And so and still do to this day, have a wonderful process where he'll do the Mohs surgery in the same building. We just moved right next door to the surgery center, and I do the reconstruction. And so the numbers of those have gone down significantly just because we have such a high cosmetic surgical numbers that I just don't have time to do the Mohs like I used to.
Okay, so explain your operation because it's very unique. Where did the five or six locations come from? Like, how did you go from working in an ENT practice to now you have your own multiple locations?
It actually happened pretty quickly. I mean, surprisingly, it was never the plan. I never had this plan like I want to have almost 50 employees and I want to have all these locations and I want to have 30 plus devices and create this, mini empire, right? We have at this time we have seven estheticians, a cosmetic tattoo artist, a tri-lift cool sculpting expert, and then six PAs and a nurse practitioner and a nurse injector. It's a big outfit. That was never the plan. It really just started just little by little. As there was a need, I just grew it. So we started in 2010. It was three surgeons, myself and two oculoplastic surgeons.
Oh.
We had four employees total. And quickly we got busy. There was a need. And so we were getting busier. I was initially from '08 to 10 when I was doing the part time thing, I was Lopez plastic surgery. And so we thought, let's become a group, and we called ourselves AFOS, Aesthetic, Facial, and Oculoplastic Surgeons. Well, Catherine, that lasted maybe 6 weeks because I tell you, getting three surgeons together to try to figure out stuff, forget it. And
I could have told you that.
well, yeah, well, I was young and dumb. And so we tried to do it where we all third partner, we all had equal say. And here I am trying to really um, promote the aesthetic side of the practice and really go out there and let everyone know what great things you can do. And I realized oculoplastic surgeons have a very mature population. So a lot of walkers, a lot of insurance, and it just wasn't the same as what I was trying to build. So about 6 weeks in, I said, "Hey guys, I think I'm going to go back to Lopez Plastic Surgery because we couldn't even come up with a website. I mean, it was terrible, like herding cats." And so I went back, went to Lopez Plastic Surgery. And at that point, we were pretty much just office sharing. And so did that for a few years and started busting at the seams. I got busy really quick, thankfully. Um, and so I realized I'm not can't keep doing all the fillers and injector and the Botox. I trained my nurse to start doing the Botox, and then she started doing the filler. And I said, this is working really well. There's an area where north of Stone Oak, which is where I'm at right now, called Bernie. Bernie's an affluent area, wonderful people, just love the patient population up there, just great people. And so I had the opportunity to purchase a building up there, a space. So I bought a space up there. And there's another area called Alamo Heights. It's kind of south of where I'm at right now. And again, wonderful patient population. I thought I need to do stuff there. So I opened up an office down there and I would put injectors there to support my surgical patients. And that's kind of how it's grown. So we basically have Bernie, we have Alamo Heights, and we have Stone Oak, which is our kind of flagship kind of space. And then we have two L Med Spa locations. The L Med Spas are the estheticians. They do the hydrofacials, the light therapy, and all of that stuff. At the Med Spa, it's very, comfortable and the music's playing and it's just really pretty. All our locations are very pretty. I think aesthetics are very important in the office space. But yeah, that's kind of how it grew. And I forgot, I kind of skipped over when I moved out of that space was 2017. About 2014, I knew it was time. I need to get out of there because it was 3,300 square feet, which sounds big. It's not. It's not big at all for what we were doing. And so it took me 3 years to find the current location I'm at, which is start off. I bought the building. It's a 15,000 square foot building. Used 9,500 square foot for my office. Next door, I had a esthetician spa that was leasing from me, and they were doing fine. But I took that space over a couple of years ago, and that's where we created the El Med Spa, the first El Med Spa, and then we have a lab next door to that. So we have three my surgical practice with our injectors, the med spa, and then a lab that is just a tenant in our building.
You're really smart to buy, and especially in San Antonio, I'm assuming you have built up lots of equity there, huh?
Yeah, and honestly, I listen to you a lot. Equity is important, but you know what's more important? Autonomy,
Yeah.
because I can control this building. As opposed to, unfortunately, in Alamo Heights, I kind of got in and I leased. Alamo Heights is a very pricey area. So initially, I leased one space and did fantastic there. Got a great community there that supports the practice. And so then we just leased another space for the El Med Spa. So we have an El Med Spa location in the injector side and on the other side. And so we haven't bought there. And there we have some restrictions. I hate asking for permission, right? It's kind of the same thing that happened with the partnership. Uh, and so the landlord's good, but it's not how I would want it to work exactly. But I encourage anyone out there starting a practice, jump in and buy the real estate if you're able to.
The biggest regret on this podcast has been I didn't buy my building.
Yeah, I mean, why make somebody else money? And the thing is, you're going to spend a lot on TI. If you got an aesthetic practice, you can't, do the carpet and it's got to be a nice office, right? So if you're going to invest in that, do you want to invest in somebody else's building? I personally rather own it, and I love real estate. We also one of my business. I do commercial real estate investing also. It's just I enjoy it.
Right?
Yeah.
So what is the business model? Did you somehow set up an LSPA protocol or prototype in your location, and then you just duplicated it throughout these other locations? Like what's the business model? Are they feeders? Are they little satellite non-surgical like
Correct. So I'm the only surgeon. I'm the 100% owner. I'm the owner, and I'm the only surgeon. I've had two surgeons in the practice. Again, it just hasn't worked out. Great guys. Both guys that I've tried have been great, just not a good fit. And so the model is that, like I said, there's our flagship place, which is in kind of north central San Antonio. Uh, is where all the providers go through here. The injectors will spend a day or two here, and then they'll spend another day or two or three at their other locations, either Alamo Heights or Bernie. The estheticians, for the most part, kind of stayed in their med spas. And so, again, what was the purpose of that? Because I've heard you say before, I kind of, it's better just have one location, have people come to you. What I like for my non-invasive stuff, my injectables, is to have it there because people like to go local. And we're talking only 30 minutes or so from my big location, but it's nice where it's convenient. And we have such phenomenal injectors and estheticians that they provide a great service. So that's the model, is essentially have the injectors out in the other locations, but the look is not the same. Bernie has its own look, Alma Heights has its own look, Sonterra has its own look.
And so the branding, is it all under one roof? Is it the same website, same social media channels? It's all under the name Lopez Plastic Surgery and L Spas?
No, it's advanced aesthetics. Lopez plastic surgery is our kind of injector surgical side, right? And then the L Med Spa is the esthetician side. But there's one website, so all the traffic goes to the one website, and there's only one phone number. So we try to make it super duper easy for our patients. So they call the number, and they're able to get their esthetician services. I mean, they can actually book whatever they like through that one phone call. So they're not calling multiple places, multiple. And they call, have you call the Bernie office, have you call, no, it's one number, and they all communicate.
All right, how are you making that happen? Because one phone number, multiple locations, nothing simple about that. Are you using automation? Really consistent phone training? Is somebody the concierge and they're triaging the calls to figure out where they go?
See, Catherine, this is what I love about your show. You ask such good questions. I mean, I hope your listeners understand. These are questions most people don't even think about.
Oh, the
So you
phones are a nightmare if you can't get them right.
so we get about 150 to 250 phone calls a day, per day. So that was one of the things that I put a lot of effort into. And we actually track all the phone calls. We track the number, we track how many go to voicemail, how many get abandoned. And I wonder how many of your listeners actually do that. I don't think many do, and they don't know how many people are calling. And guess what? If you don't answer, they're going to call the next person, right? That's what I do. If I call business, if you don't answer, I'm going to call the next one. So yeah, that's a super duper important part. I don't believe in automation at this point because um, I don't like the phone tree. We are super duper concierge kind of. You call our office, it's first class the whole way. And so I don't want a phone tree and I don't want automation. We have a live person answer the calls. And we have a phone protocol of who answers. Initially, we have people that just is a call center, and if the call center is busy, then there's a protocol of who should be answering, and they should be answered within 4 rings. Um, we, our goal is 95%, and we hit it 95 to 100% over 90% of the time.
Nice. And so is it a call center in your headquarter office where the phones are not ringing? Another problem is when you have that many phone calls, it's so distracting listening to all the phone ringing. Is it off like in the back?
Yeah, you've been doing this a while. So you do not have the phones in the front. Unfortunately, some offices, like when we first started, I hated it because people would be on the phone at the front desk and everybody's in the lobby and they're hearing the conversation. It's totally distracting. So we have a call center, two actually ways we do it. One's the call center, which is we have an upstairs area, which is where our conference room is, where we have our meetings, and then a separate call center. And then we also have people that actually work for the practice that answer from home. So it's nice. It's convenient for them. And we track the number of calls that they answer. I mean, so everything's tracked. So we try to minimize the number of phones that are answered, but that's part of the protocol. Like I'd rather have somebody answer that phone than let it to go to voicemail. But those are more usually the checkout people and not. So we have separate checkout and check-in locations. We try to. It's not just one area that people check in. I mean, not one area people check in and check out at. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So yeah, the priority is more the checkout person will answer it versus the check-in because checkout people aren't in the lobby area.
Right. Wow. How many staff do you really have? 50 staff?
Close, yeah, we're like 46, 47, 48, something like that.
Yeah, I counted him on one of the photos, Instagram photos, and it was up to like 30. And I thought he's up to 30 staff. And no, he's up to 50 staff.
I
Doing
know. Yeah. Yes. I mean, as you can never get all the staff for the group photo. The reason why I know it's around 40 because we have a party twice a year. We have an adult party and we have a family party. Our adult party was just in uh, actually it was in this spring, so just last year, this past spring, and there was 48 people that are invited with plus one. So yeah, it's a big operation.
And then where do you go?
We actually had it. It depends. We've done it when it was smaller. We would do wine tours up to Austin. There's like a wine area up there. That area, and then what else have we done? We've done parties at my house, but now we're too big. We actually had the Shrine Auditorium. They have like a dance hall, and we have theme nights. Last few times it's been in kind of venues, and we've done like this last one was Latin night. We've done country night. It's a big thing. We get like DJs and dance instructors and catered food. Just to show appreciation. And then the family party is always at my house. I'm on a couple acres, and we always get like icy try. Yeah, just make it fun for the kids as well.
Right. Dear Lord. So I know what it's like to manage people, and that there's nothing easy about that. You've got family and business, and they have lives, and you have your priorities. How are you managing all these people?
You know what? You get great people. The people manage themselves. So I think you always hear you say that HR is the hardest part, and I would
So
actually disagree with that. And I
so
think
how do you do it? Because everyone else, that's their number one challenge,
yeah,
staff. They
because I
don't know
think
how to hire, they don't know how to train, they don't know how to motivate, they don't know how to keep people motivated. So tell me, we're all ears. How are you doing it?
again, I think it starts with, like you said, the hiring. Uh, so we give these presentations. The providers give presentations to our staff periodically, and I gave a talk on the history of the practice. So I started the talk by saying, okay, I got a confession. I'm I got to tell you, I'm a very prejudiced individual. And as I get older, I'm even more prejudiced. It's just my wife can attest. And I kind of paused and I said, and I'm looking out. My staff are African American, Caucasian, Asian American, gay, straight, female, right? So they're like, wait a minute, how do you be prejudiced? And I said, I'm prejudiced against lazy, entitled, apathetic, and disrespectful people. And what is that? That's lead. So lead weighs the practice down. So if you're lazy, entitled, apathetic, or disrespectful, look around this room. Do you see anyone like that? And so you kind of, and I said, who do we hire? We hire rock stars. We hire people that are respectful, on time, courteous, kind, selfless, team players, ambitious, relentless, and sincere. And so you set the tone by saying, look, if you're going to be part of this practice, you're going to you're not going to be led, you're not going to weigh us down, you're going to be a rock star. And if not, it's time for you to go elsewhere. I'm a big sports fan. The 2024 Dodgers just won the World Series, right? Do you think the GM, do you think the GM of the Dodgers is saying, yeah, HR is my biggest problem when he's got these wonderful baseball players just won the World Series? No. I'm a big Spurs fan. Back in the day with Tony and Timmy and Manu, HR wasn't their problem. Now we got Wemby, which is awesome. But it's hiring the right people. It's appreciating the people, and it starts at the top. I'm, I I learn a lot from non-medical stuff, and I read a lot. And there's a wonderful book called Good to Great. I know you've read it. Phenomenal. And they talk about level 5 leaders. And that's what I aspire to be, is put my practice above myself. And I think my staff know that, my patients know it, and prioritize them. And when they know if it's being sincere or not, if you're being sincere or not. And honestly, I think I don't think it's magic. I think that my staff knows I care about them, I respect them, I compensate them well as the practice does great. I'm not the only one that does great. Uh, so it's worked. I've been very, very blessed and fortunate.
How often do you meet with your staff?
So I meet. So I have management. I meet with the managers weekly. I meet with all the staff every other week, and then the managers meet with. So I've structured it so there's people responsible for certain people. The short answer is they meet about weekly.
But you're consistently giving them that leadership message. I think that's the part that's missing because if the staff doesn't know who are we? What are we trying to do here? And it's like I'm all about the good of the practice. It's not about the good of the individual, it's the good of the practice. It's us working together as a team to build this killer practice, you know? But I think it takes the leader to keep reminding them of that. And that's what you're
Hope
doing.
people are listening to you because you have so much wisdom. I didn't have that when I started, right?
Mm,
I was a surgeon, and most people listening to this podcast are like, I'm a surgeon, I operate, and I have a manager, and she takes care of the practice.
right.
That just doesn't work, right? If you want to grow it, if you want to stay kind of mom and pop, have a few locations, have a few staff, and kind of work it that way, yeah,
Mhm.
that happened. But you know what? When I got stolen from was when I was small because I was not paying attention. I wasn't minding my business. And so you have to pay attention to the numbers. You need to respect your staff. You have to have a hierarchy of structure within the practice, and you have to be responsible for it. Fortunately, I love it. I love business. I mean, I listen to business podcasts. I mean, I it's that's kind of who I am, and the whole leadership aspect of it is really makes me feel good. Why? I got almost 50 women that are kind of being successful because of what I've created and what we've created together. So that brings me a lot of joy. So that's why I say HR is the good stuff. That's like where I mean, my providers do phenomenally well. My estheticians do phenomenally well. And it's because we created this environment. So I get a lot of joy out of it. It's not this pull and tug relationship, right? It's a relationship where we're working together towards a common goal. And guess what? A byproduct is we do pretty darn well, monetarily. And that's not the goal, though. The goal is to provide, again, we have a mission statement. Our mission statement: provide a world class patient experience in a pleasing environment for us all. So you hit both. You hit, look, we're going to take care of our patients, but we're also going to take care of each other. And anything we do has to be congruent, has to be coincide with what our mission statement. Again, it's been a very enjoyable process. When you said, how did I go from working in an ENT office to this? Just kind of a lot of it was faith. I have a lot of faith. I thank God for everything I do, and I ask God for His blessings every day, and I thank Him at night. And I think that those that maybe haven't gotten there should explore it because that was the best thing I ever did decades ago. To understand that the power is not me, right? The power is beyond me, and I'm just doing His work. So that's a big part of it as well.
I don't know how you're making it sound very easy. Staff is not easy, but somehow let's talk about embezzlement for a second because that comes up a lot.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
a lot of the surgeons absolutely want to hide out in the OR and just don't want to do the business and the marketing side, which is exactly why I'm trying to say you do want to do it. It actually can be a lot of fun once you understand it and you see all the opportunities in it. But managing staff, usually what happens is something happens, the funny money happens, and then the wife is sent in to, take care of the books now. Did you go through that metamorphosis or did you, you had an embezzlement issue. And is that when you woke up and said, wait a second, I really do need to know my numbers? Like, what was that about?
Yeah, I wish it was that easy.
Oh,
So the first time that we got ripped off was at surgery center. So four doctors started a surgery center that we didn't know what we were doing, right? The business side, and this was back in 2010. We hired a nurse manager. We got a consultant to kind of do all the logistics to get us certified, and we were actually Medicare certified, JACO certified. And we still are. Uh, but the nurse manager hired a front desk girl and made her the assistant manager. And guess what she gave her? A credit card to do expenses to kind of take something off her plate. Come to find out, like months later, she had charged over 25 grand, like a computer, her like electric bill. I mean, everything. She was just living off the card. And again, young dumb guys were like, oh. So we discovered it. Obviously, fired her. And comes to find out, guess what? She did it to her previous employer.
oh
Did,
dear.
did we do a background check? Did we call? No, because we were young and dumb. So that was one. I had another where um, I had an injector that would follow patients, would do treatments and actually follow them to the ATM so they would pay cash so she can pocket the cash. I mean, in how many years I've been doing this, things happen, but you just get smarter, right? You don't stop because guess what? I was still being super profitable. I was still doing great, but you just kind of stop the leaks, and that's where you kind of learn, and you just get better and better. So um, it's been a process. Yeah.
So regarding accounting, or do you have some kind of a CRM that you're using that everyone's connected to so it's very transparent, the money coming in, the money going out?
So I have a full-time bookkeeper that takes care of my books. We do an end-of-day invoicing as well, and then we use Patient Now for our electronic health medical record, which has been fantastic. Actually, I would encourage. I mean, it's a great product. Uh, so between that, a full-time bookkeeper, and then I check the numbers um, every month to make sure it's consistent. And then I also, so no one writes a check besides me. No one, the credit card, I have access and I check it regularly. So it's just oversight, uh, trust but verify, right? So,
Right.
yeah.
And just letting them know you actually are on top of your game. The reason people embezzle is they think they can. They think they can get away with it. Some of them get away with it for years. It is shocking. I don't know how you work for somebody and steal behind their back and still say good morning to them. I don't get that, but seems to be a little common. One thing that's interesting about San Antonio, though, don't you have a ton of military there? And if that's the case, aren't a lot of your staff, like, aren't they married to military? So if something happens, like half the town leaves to to go into action or something?
So San Antonio is an interesting community. So there's definitely a big military presence, right? But I think there's 1.7 million or something like that. We're going to say we're the seventh largest city. And we're not like a bunch of, not everybody's walking around in uniforms. So, like I said, when I was in the Air Force, I was in the Air Force community.
Mm,
Not had nothing. I mean, I didn't know any private practice people. I mean, it was very different. When you go into private practice, you take care of some military folks, and I'm very proud to take care of them. And I still take TRICARE for things like that. But they're very two different worlds. You
mm.
can have some staff, and not that I would not hire military staff or spouses, but it just happens to be we don't have one right now. I did actually not early on, maybe a few years ago. I hired a masseuse, and the masseuse just went around again trying to give this concierge world class experience. Well, when if patients were waiting, she would walk in and just give them a little neck massage and just complimentary, like no tipping even allowed. And she was great. Patients loved it. I mean, went around, and then she actually was our one that had to move because her husband was uh, PCS, went to another base. But that was the only time that's happened. Uh, we've been fortunate otherwise. Yeah.
I love that idea. Actually, I used to tell people if you're gonna make them wait, at least give them a massage chair and a little music
Yeah.
and let them wait in peace and quiet. And I'd wait all day if you let me, get a massage. Yeah. So, what would you say is like a really big mistake you made that others could learn from and not have to make it too?
It goes back to the numbers. You just got to know your numbers, right? The biggest mistake that people do is they abdicate that responsibility to someone else, uh, and you got to be the one that knows your numbers. And I know what our revenue should be on fillers and on Botox, on everything that goes around. If you don't know that stuff, you're just setting yourself up for somebody to take it from you. So I made that mistake early on, and fortunately, it's been corrected. Who knows? Kind of, I know that I know nothing, right? Socrates, and so it's one of those things that I might be getting embezzled right now. But if they are, that they're pretty smart because I'm looking at all the numbers. Uh, but I always tell the people like when we do these meetings and stuff, we have this improvement. I'm like, yeah, I've only doing this 18 years. And I just finally figured out that this would be actually beneficial. So there's things I'm not even aware of that we'll probably be doing in a year, just because we're finally like, hey, we should do that.
What about inventory? When you have so many locations, it's so difficult to figure out the inventory. And sometimes there's that staff person who has opened up their own account. and they're also getting paid, part of the inventory. There's so many ways that there's there's so many opportunities there, for a shifty person to take advantage of that. Any issues with inventory?
Now, again, there's got to be checks and balances, and how each person does it is different, right?
Hmm.
We have, I mean, we to the unit, we check our Botox daily, right? And by the fillers are weekly, and skincare is monthly. And there's not just one set of eyes, there's always two set of eyes. And so with that, again, can there be conspiracy and people working together? But it all kind of makes sense, especially knowing my numbers. If something's off, we'll investigate. But fortunately, things have been good. So you have to have a process in place, right? If you just hope that it happens, it's not going to happen. We looked at the, thinking about doing that bar scanning code and stuff. It just didn't make sense when we looked into it.
Do you do anything like, especially for non-surgical, there's just room there to mess around with things. So I always say, you know what, multi-form, numbered multi-forms, where the patient gets one, like a receipt, and then the office, they keep the other two copies, and they're separated. So there's a check and balance. All three of those have to stay the same, because a
Yeah.
lot of people go in and change some of the paperwork, but you can't if it's a multi-form. Do you do something like that?
Now, can we do it all through Patient Now?
Uh-huh.
So there's always a daily, the daily checkout kind of basically has to make sense. And so that's where my bookkeeper and the people who do the checkout have to. And so we found like, sometimes, thankfully, very rarely, there's like, hey, we're kind of off by like $20 or $40. And, we
Mhm.
have big numbers. We see 100 to 150 patients a day, right? We see 400 to 500, and we see a lot of people, right? Um, so, but the numbers have to be spot on. And if they're not, we'll investigate it. And
Mhm.
honestly, it doesn't happen very often.
Oh my god, that's a lot going.
It's about the people, Catherine. It's about the people. And it starts with the person who sets the expectation and the tone. And so it does take, it's not going to happen on its own. So if you just want to be a surgeon, go work for somebody. Let somebody else do that part of it. But gosh dang it, we worked way too hard to get where we're at,
Mhm.
to work for somebody, especially like private equity. Unfortunately, our surgery center was just purchased by private equity last year. That
Thanks.
was not my choice. Two of the surgeons are older surgeons that are looking to retire pretty soon. And again, I would not encourage people to do it. I think that it's like a child. You raise this child, this beautiful child that is now an adult and going to do great things, and then you just kind of give it away to somebody else.
So
Uh,
wait a second, is this the surgery center where the 4 of you bought it years ago?
mhm.
Alright, so the PE people, they're always gonna come by and try to get involved in all of that. So was it a democracy? Like 2 wanted to sell, 2 didn't? What happened?
So not getting too much in the weeds. Essentially, again, the four of us were 25% owners, uh,
Right?
and we had basically veto power. So if somebody didn't want to do it, we had veto power. But the caveat was, if you veto it, you got to match that offer. Otherwise, your veto power goes away. And private equity throws big dollars. We're talking 8-figure valuation, right? I mean,
Right.
these are big numbers. And so um, we ultimately, I kind of acquiesced and be like, all right, I just capitulated and be like, I'll sell. They took 60% of it. We have 40% still, 10 each. And, but they're in control, right?
They're
Uh,
in control, there's an earnout involved,
yeah.
there's no more you doing whatever you feel like doing. Like, please talk about that for a second, because PE sounds fantastic until you really look at it, you no longer own that place.
Yeah, there was no earnout. We got the money right up front, right? So they basically bought our shares right up.
Okay.
And so, but the problem is, and again, as you can probably tell from our conversation, I like to control what's around me because I think I do a good job at it, right? So I provided the great experience, and when somebody else may have other motives, um, it's frustrating. And so ultimately, they bought 60%, and it was just got the big wire, and we kept 10%, and then so we're still part owners, but they control it. So that's the downside. And they brought in a lot of things. Unfortunately, as firms go, they run a good operation, but like stuff that we've been doing for like 14 years that has been like, we have like no problems at the surgery center. All the staff super happy. Our turnover is like zero, and they're just making it more difficult for them. And they're putting these things that actually are like big expenses. It just don't make sense. So without getting in the weeds, I certainly wouldn't have done it for my practice. That's why I stay 100% owner, because to actually have to allow somebody else to determine how I practice, my God, be careful what you do. Because I don't know anyone that sold and be like, oh yeah, it's the best thing ever. And I'm just going to keep working them for 10 years. Most of them's like, yeah, I sold. I just got to make it through 3 years.
And that 3 years has now become 5 years or 10 years. They need you to stay put to
Ah,
stabilize all of this. And then there's typically a staff turnover because the staff says, "Thanks a lot, you just ruined my life." Like, that's
one of my
unfortunate.
best employees, I mean, just she's amazing. She's one of my medical assistants. Her dermatologist who bought out my private equity. And guess the first thing they did? Hey, we're so smart with numbers. We're going to cut the hourly rate that you're paying your staff because we're going to save money. Guess what she did? She bolted, and I was like, I'm taking you. It was awesome. And she's been with me for like almost 8 years now. Uh,
Mm.
so, I welcome private equity in our industry because we'll just kick their butt. I mean, some of the things that they think that we're going to save money by we're going to all work together. We're going to have all this genius working together and we're going to cut our costs down. But you're going to dilute everything. You're going to make everybody miserable and no one's going to be in control except for the non-physicians that don't get what we do. So yeah, I that is not in my future at all for
So
my
how long has it been? How long have they owned it?
a year. Yeah,
When
like it'll be 2 years in April.
All right, if you were dissatisfied, is there a way for you to walk out without leaving money on the table?
Yeah. So here's the thing about it. I think the difference is between a practice and a surgery center. They can't obligate me to operate there, right? Versus the practice, you have a place to practice. You have to, you can obligate you. That's where the earnouts probably happen more often. This
Mhm.
was they're just buying, 60% of the surgery center, and they're going to profit. They're going to get 60% of the profits. Plus, they take a fee. Um, but again, uh, it's it's been okay, but it is really great for the guys who are going to be retiring, right? But for me, I plan on being there a long time. Those staff, honestly, one of them's been there the entire time that she's my preoperative nurse. The majority have been there 10 plus years. And so it's great staff. So why would I leave? I want to operate there. And fortunately, I don't want to paint it like they've been horrible. It's just the potential. The potential for it to be bad and not have control is there, but I still enjoy operating there. In fact, patients love going there. It's a one-room surgery center that I operate every Monday and Thursday, and I'm there all day. And it's a great, pleasant experience for the
Mhm.
patients. And so I just got to keep protecting it, right?
Mm. Do you
Yeah.
have a good CPA? Because if you got a good buyout on that, that's a huge taxable event. Did you
Oh
figure all
yeah,
that?
yeah, yeah, no, yeah, yeah. We do that.
You're all
Yeah.
good? You're all good?
Yeah, we're all good. So yeah, I have it with all my stuff. I have. You have to. If you don't have a CPA, if you're trying to do your own books, shame on you. I mean, pay somebody to do it.
Well,
We
I
have.
think real estate's the best tax advantages I've ever done. I do syndications.
Yeah,
I'm in several of them, and we just all get together and buy like a big, like 300 unit apartment
yeah.
building. But it's been the greatest tax advantage. Especially being a self-employed person, you've got to have some kind of protection there, and it's been good.
It's been the most historically proven asset class, right? Is real estate, right? But to me, it's better than stocks. I mean, you have so many advantages of it. We can have a whole podcast on that. I'm a big believer in real estate. My dad actually did a lot of residential when I was growing up. But then I saw the downside of that because that was actually his. When I was in high school and college, I would go down there and paint, and I would go out there and fix things. And I tell you what, people can just destroy their homes. I mean, right? I mean, I just remember pulling up carpet that had urine and all this stuff from the animals. I said, I'm never doing residential, right? So I've really enjoyed commercial and San Antonio's provided great opportunities.
Right. The residential, a lot of people like you dabble in it and you go buy a place, a house, and then you rent it out and you think, oh dear God, why did I do this? Because you're in the weeds big time.
But
That's when I went
I
to
don't self-manage that. You don't want to self-manage. I mean, you're a surgeon,
right.
right? Yeah, yeah. Forget that. No,
And you have
I
a
just get
management
paid.
team, and you have a maintenance team, and it's a real operation, just like anything else. It runs like a business. Then I love that.
Oh,
Um,
I have a wonderful partner that he and I mean, we this it's yeah, he's fantastic, and he's got his team, and he manages and runs it, and it's great. Yeah.
Nice, nice setup you have there.
Yeah.
Let's talk about marketing because you also San Antonio. A lot of people move there. I mean, you're just in a great place for real estate. But also, how is it going with the competition? Because I do know several of your competitors. Is it getting more competitive? Has it always been competitive? And how are you differentiating yourself?
So yeah, I think every market's competitive, right? I think everyone's gonna tell you, I'm in this town, but it just seems like there's plastic surgeons everywhere. And when I started in when I remember '08, I worked for the CNT group. When I got out in 2010, I'll never forget the CEO wanted to hire me to bring me on at full time for the ENT group. And said, yeah, you can do ENT, you can do facial plastics along with that. And I said, I appreciate it, but I'm actually going to do full time facial plastics. That's what I do. And I did that in the Air Force, right? And so she goes, "Oh, Manny," she goes, "you'll never survive. San Antonio is dominated by plastic surgeons, and you just won't make it. You have to do ENT." I said, "Well, let's see what happens." And so here we are, 14 years later, and I think I'm doing okay.
It
Uh,
worked out pretty well. Yeah.
yeah, it's good. And so why did I got busy super fast? And why did I get busy super fast? I think honestly, Catherine's results. If you get the results, and it seems very logical, very logical, but if you get the results, people talk. And so where do I do my marketing? My marketing are my patients. And so I kind of did people, which I didn't know were key people at the time, but I would operate on this person. All of a sudden, boom, she would bring like, she was the captain of the cheerleading team of her, group, and so all her friends would come. And then I get people from like Laredo, Corpus Christi, the Valley, and you do one person and you do a great job for them. All of a sudden, like, wow, the floodgates open. Like, we get so many people that come from Laredo, and that stemmed from like probably 13 years ago. I operated on this one person, and now where the people used to go to San Diego, now they come to San Antonio. So different things. Um, so yeah, so I think that's how do I differentiate myself? I'm just myself, and I let people decide. I always tell people I'm an educator. I'm not going to sell anything to you. I'm not going to market to you. You want to come see me, I'll tell you what I can do for you. And I get pretty dang good results people like. And so that's kind of I don't know if that's differentiated. I'm sure the other guys are doing the same stuff. I'm sure they're getting great results. It just works for me, I guess.
Well, they're all still trying to figure out that silver bullet. Was it SEO? Was it, do I need a new website? The word of mouth, I think, is everything, but so many just don't see that as a tangible thing to do. It's it's so like take good care of your patients and they'll take good care of you. Just feels so fluffy. They'd rather give the internet people 5 grand a month to try to get that PPC ad to work. And I think you need to do all of it in today's world. I think you need a lot of poles in the pond. But know your numbers. Your numbers will tell you, is it
I
working
got
or
to
not?
tell you, Catherine, I guess I'm just not in that. I am behind because our marketing budget is probably like 0.1% of our revenue. I mean, we don't do paid for click ads or whatever it's called. Uh,
Yeah.
we have a website. We do our search engine optimization for it because I think that's important. It's kind of like what the yellow pages used to be, but way better. So people can see your results. And what happens. They're out doing something socially, and they say, "Oh yeah, Dr. Lopez did my neck." Okay, well, what's the first thing I do? Go on my website, and they're gonna check my pictures and before and afters, and maybe they're doing Instagram now. I don't do. And we have an Instagram. I have people that do this. I have a full 2 marketing people that do my Instagram and the videos and all that kind of stuff. But I'm not the one. I don't. I put 0 hours a week into Instagram. Occasionally they ask me for um, to put some content, and I'll do like a quick 30-second something or other. But that's just not where my focus is. And I know I've been doing this a long time, so it's just repeatable, right? So if you've been doing this, however many years I've been doing it, I've touched a lot of people. And if you touch all these people, and then they tell their friend, just kind of. So how would I do it starting now? I'd probably still do it the same way. I kind of went around and met all the dermatologists. Met primary care. Like I met some primary care people like, we've never had a plastic surgeon come in here. Well,
Mm.
yeah, I'm here if you need me kind of thing. Cause I just
Do
want
you leave the
to be busy.
patient?
Not a whole lot. I mean, the dermatologist did. In fact, part of the reason why I've grown this was when I first came out, there's a big dermatology group, like 17 dermatologists. And I'd operate on a couple of them, and they were just feeding me. I mean, feeding me eyelids and necks, and it was great. And like probably 4 years into that, guess what they did? They hired a plastic surgeon.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so that just went away. But fortunately, I had been now by that time I was busy enough and just continued to grow up. And I realized I didn't want to be dependent on a referral source. I
Mm.
wanted to be able to have everything within our practice that would self-refer. And then again, I controlled the environment that the patients would come in through the door. I control how they're greeted. I control how their phones are answered. uh, the people that are doing the treatments, all of my injectors, they go through a 2 year training program before they're actually out like on their own. And so it's all about quality control. It's not about, hey, let's do a weekend course and let's get you out injecting and generating that revenue. Revenue is a byproduct of what we do. It's not the purpose of what we do. Uh, so uh, we just don't put a lot in marketing at all. I mean, my marketing is pretty much, I like to support organizations. So if people ask me, we support this, we'll donate whatever. Um, but as far as doing any kind of ads, we tried them early on, like for cool sculpting and stuff. It just didn't really, the quality of the leads weren't great. Again, this is there's people, I know there's people doing great stuff with that. I just haven't found it, one, necessary as an expense, and two, when we've tried it in the past, that that great.
What any tips on how you're getting the patient consents for photos and getting a review from them?
Yeah, we have a lot of reviews. I think we have like over 1,000 reviews or
Yeah.
something.
How are you doing that?
Just consistency. Again, I know a lot of people say the surgeon should ask.
Mhm.
I'm fortunate in a position right now that we have such great people around me that I don't ever ask for. Rarely do I ask for before and afters, and I never ask for reviews.
Huh.
But we get them, And so if I wasn't getting them, I sure as heck would be asking, right? And so, can we be better about putting more before and afters out there? Yeah. Do I have a need to? I mean, we got like a 4 month wait list, to uh, surgery, and so it's one of those things that am I looking to fix a problem that I don't have? So we've been fortunate to get a lot of before and afters just because over the years we've accumulated them, and as well as a lot of reviews as well. And my staff are really good about asking for them, I guess.
Good.
Yeah.
So, we're getting close to the end. Tell me a crazy patient or staff story that you care to share. It cannot all be rosy over there. I know.
No, gosh, no. Are you kidding me? No, it's the when going back real quick before you go there is you said what's the most difficult part of running a practice? To me, it's the one percenters. It's the people that they just get through somehow. And I'm like, how the heck did I bring that patient into our practice, invite that patient into my life, right? I mean, because that's the way I see it. Every employee that I bring in, I'm inviting into my life. Every patient that I touch, I'm inviting into my life if I'm going to commit to operate on, right? And so there's the patient that I came in for a facelift, and I always talk about, well, what would you benefit from? Not just the facelift. They come in want facelift. Okay, look at your brows are low, you got a long lip, you have puffiness, you have everything that goes with facial rejuvenation, which is a huge part of my practice. And so I went through it, and she goes, "Well, I just want my neck. I don't like my heavy neck, and I just want that done." Okay, fine. You understand though, you're not going to get improvement in the other areas we talked about. Okay. So do the surgery. She goes from like this big heavy neck to like a 90-degree neck. Everything was great. Um, and I see her like at 2 or 3 months, and she goes, "Well, I don't like, why does my lip so long? That wasn't like that before surgery." I'm like, "We talked about that." She goes, "Well, it wasn't like that. You need to fix it." I said, "Ma'am, I understand, but that's the beauty of befores. I got to tell you, I won't operate on a patient unless I have befores. In fact, yeah, I won't go into it, but the answer is you got to have befores, right?" And so she got pretty upset with me, and she went away, and then she wanted to come back and talk to me. But that time she saw me, we didn't get after. She refused after pictures. So she came back to see me, and I told my medical assistant, I said, before I see her, I need to have after pictures, right? Because she can change stuff. I mean, you just don't know. And if somebody responds that oddly, you want to have documentation, photographic documentation. So my medical assistant saying, "Man, we need to get pictures. Dr. Lopez won't see you until the pictures are done." She was doing like positioning like this, and then my medical assistant was like, "Ma'am, we need to get standard photos, blah 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 blah." And she said, "You're harassing me. I'm going to call 911." And she called 911.
From your office?
Yes. And so she called 911, and I kind of we use these mics in the office. I kind of hear what's going on, and uh, they tell me, okay, she's now in the room, and I walk in the room, and she's just standing up. I go, "Hi, ma'am, how are you?" And again, I kill them with kindness, as pleasant as I can be. And what's going on? She goes, "Well, I called 911." I said, "Okay, what's going on?" She goes, "Well, your medical assistant, she was being very, she was not assaulting, but whatever reason she called 911 for. My medical assistant, by the way, did not touch her." I said, "Okay, I understand you call 911, but I can't wait here for the police to come. So do you want to talk about what we want to do, or what your concerns are?" And she goes, "Okay." And so, again, come with kindness. I said, look at your befores. Now we have these afters. What a difference you can see. Well, I'm not happy with this. Happy to do an upper lip lift. This is how we do it. But, that wasn't part of the procedure, blah, blah, blah. And by the end of that, she goes, "Well, you're very nice, but she's the problem." She kind of puts it on the medical assistant. And I say, "Well, now you know." She ends up going outside, waiting for the officers to come in and actually to come meet her. And you can imagine how the officers were like, "Oh my goodness." So they came in, talked to our front desk, and fortunately that just kind of all went away. But it's those one percenters that make life interesting. But my God, you can have like 100 patients tell you how amazing you are, and just you have that one that just questions your results. It's just like, oh, it keeps you up at night.
It's the, trust your gut and trust your staff's gut. Women are really good at IDing that usually,
Hmm.
you know.
They get through, Catherine. You see enough folks, they're going to get through. And
Yeah,
fortunately, yeah, you're right. And here's the great thing is if you're in a position where you don't have to operate, like our everything's paid, we don't have to worry about the finances, and that's when you're in a great position. When
right.
you're the one deciding, you know what, I'm not going to operate on you because something's just off. And I understand some people, especially when you first started, they just need to operate to get the reps in. And that's when you're most vulnerable. It's so interesting. You're most vulnerable when you're least experienced, right? Because you're most vulnerable because you got to pay your rent, you got to pay your staff. So you got to do cases. And you maybe sometimes, and you're charging less, or you're getting people that can afford you that might be a little. So, yeah, so it's an interesting path. But that was my one. A little cray cray moment.
Just on the other hand, some of the surgeons have an experience like that, and they're so paranoid about it that now they only do a virtual first, just to see if they even like the person. Then they make them fill out a form. Then if they get that far, then they'll come in for an in person. Then they'll think about it, and they'll email the quote. Like they get so bogged down trying to identify that problem ahead of time that they're completely walking over the 99% who are going to be fantastic, but now are pissed off saying, "I'm not doing it this way. This is ridiculous." Like convenience is important. Time savings is important. So you can always go too far with everything, probably.
Catherine, we worked way again. Everyone listening to this podcast has worked their butt off to get med school, residency, fellowships. Trust your instincts. Don't go overboard. And I think that again, it's 90. Again, when you're younger, it might be 90% because you might not be getting the results that you get as you mature and you kind of get more eloquent with your surgery. I certainly am doing much better surgery than I was doing 10 years ago, 15 years ago, right? It's a maturation.
For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Last question. Tell us something we don't know about you.
I always hear you ask that. So I, I played racquetball in college. I play pickleball now. But one thing that is kind of off the wall is when we opened our surgery center, um, and we operate all day, right? And so my surgical tech uh, was hungry, and I go, okay, well, we don't have time to go get food. Let's get food brought in. And so we got Chipotle. This was back in 2011 now. Since 2011, every Monday and Thursday, I bought Chipotle for the surgery center, and I probably can count on less. maybe two hands maybe when we haven't had it. So I'm a big Chipotle fan every Monday and every Thursday. And so that's something different and interesting. And it's just like the perfect meal. Like when I'm doing two facelifts, if I do one facelift, I'll eat the Chipotle. I'm ready for the next one. I don't get over.
I was in Houston, Texas, and I had never been to a Chick-fil-A. And I was doing consulting there, and they brought it in, because I'm like the special guest. So we had Chick-fil-A. I couldn't even talk. I thought this is the most amazing junk food I have ever eaten. Um, the sauce, whatever that sauce is, was amazing. And
Yeah.
now we do have Chick-fil-A out here, but at the time we didn't have it here in California, and they eat that all the time. And I just think, oh boy, that's why.
Yeah. But I would talk about Chipotle, not Chick-fil-A.
I know. I'm
Yeah.
saying Chipotle would probably be a lot healthier, but the Chick-fil-A,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. No, Chick-fil-A is super popular here in San Antonio. My God. So you guys do have it now?
we do now, but you
Yeah,
still
I
have to
bet
drive to get it. Yeah.
what a great organization. They're closed on Sundays, and I tell you, the line's always around the building, and they always got the greatest people working for them. So talk about, see, that's who you learn from. You
Right.
learn from the people that do Chick-fil-A, that do in and outs like these. How are these people getting such great people to work for them and provide such great customer care, right?
But what's the answer? Because how do they get those in and out people? They are the nicest, sweetest people I have ever met, and
You
they're
know why?
teenagers,
Because they don't hire lead and they only hire rock stars. That's why.
right?
You got it.
God,
Yeah. And guess what? Just like patients, some patients get through the door. You're like, oh my God, how did that happen? Some
yeah.
employees, some staff will get through the door, but the difference there is you can just, it's not, you're doing them a favor by
Mhm,
letting them go and finding where they should be, and
mhm,
yourself a favor and the staff around them by not having to be part of the family, right?
right.
So
God, I'm glad you figured it out because,
I have,
they're
hey,
still working on that.
I
Yeah,
know what I don't know. I know that I know nothing, right? And so I am very humble. I don't ever think I figured it out. There's if you haven't, The Infinite Game, Simon Sinek, if you haven't read that, read it. Life's not about like there's a finite game like football or baseball, it ends at a certain time, right? The infinite game is our practice. Our practice is never going to end. Can we be named the top cosmetic surgery practice in San Antonio? Yeah, we've been named that a lot. Is that our goal? No. Our goal is to provide a world-class patient experience and a pleasing environment for us all. That's the infinite game. As long as we keep doing that, it doesn't end. We're going to always be doing it, right? So you always got to be consistent in what you do.
that mission statement that you have, does the staff know that?
Oh gosh, we repeat it every meeting. Yeah.
Exactly. I just think if you could just start with a guiding light statement, we are the premier practice in this neighborhood or this area, or we strive for five or something. It has to be short, sweet. Everyone can say it. You say it constantly at every meeting. You've got to have a guiding light. That's the secret. One of the secrets,
But
One,
there can't be to me to be the top practice. There can't be a point because what happens when you're the top practice? Now what? There has to be a culture. Is the way,
yeah.
and that's what Simon Sinek talks about in Infinite Game. It's a great book. You should read it.
Right. Okay. Yeah, we've all heard of him. All right. So if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, your website is lopezplasticsurgery.com. Is there any other way that they would want to contact you?
I don't do Instagram at all. I've never gone. I don't think I have an account.
Okay, you just have to go to his website and see if his staff will, will connect with
No, yeah, that's probably the best way. Yeah.
you. Probably. All right. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Lopez. You're doing a fine job. Congratulations. I wish I had your real estate portfolio, but I don't. But good for you. Everyone, that's going to wrap it up for us today. If you would, please subscribe to Beauty and the Biz podcast so we can grow the audience more. Of course, a review would be nice. And then if you've got any questions or feedback for me, you can leave them on my website at catherinemaley.com. You can also order a growth strategy review where I take a look at your practice and see where some of the holes are that we can plug up. Or you can always DM me on Instagram at Catherine Maley MBA. Thanks so much, and we'll talk again soon.
The fastest way to success is to model other successful surgeons who have what you want, but you can only see their results, not the path they took to get there. So you continue to jump from one thing to another, hoping to find something that will work for you too. But it rarely does. So try this shortcut instead. It's guaranteed to move you forward. I compiled my intellectual property to grow cosmetic revenues, everything I've gleaned over the years, into one playbook of the most successful practices and what they do to win. Go to cosmeticpracticevault.com and let's grow your cosmetic revenues.